Testing 1 2 3, testing 1 2 3. Crane Cove Park. Today's weather in San Francisco is 72 degrees Fahrenheit, 56% humidity with 11-mile-an-hour winds. And today's date is Tuesday, October the 20th, 2020 at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Okay, now before we begin our journey going westbound on 19th Street, I want to emphasize the significance of how the streets are numbered and aligned. This for several reasons. One, this allows you to more easily find a business or an attraction once you understand how the streets are numbered and aligned. And also it helps ride-sharing services like Uber and Lyft try to find you. When a driver asks you where you're located, you know how to identify your specific location, and then you can just relay that information to the driver. So we're going to be starting off at the 600 block of 19th Street. Now if you notice, the arrow is pointing westbound, which indicates that the numbered block is rising, for instance, to the next 100 blocks. So for instance, the next street that crosses 19th Street, that's going to be at the 700 block of 19th. And then we're going to be at the 800 block and the 19th block, etc., etc. And then the other thing you need to emphasize is that one side of the street is going to be odd numbered, and then the other side is going to be even numbered in terms of the specific street address. So again, making it easier for you to find the establishment. Now, one final thing in regards to the arrow pointing westbound, best means, as I said earlier, that the numbers in the block are going to be increasing, which means also that to your right of the arrow, the number is going to be decreasing. So you know that the number to your right of the arrow is going to be 500, and it's going to get less to 400, 300, 200, 100, and then you'll see the end of the block. So, with that being the case, let's get started. Going westbound on 19th Street, the cross street is going to be 3rd Street. Now, one final thing. On 3rd Street, area is going to be where most of your dining options are going to be located at. Now, currently, we're in the sub-neighborhood of Dog Patch, which is within Potrero Hill. You'll find that in several neighborhoods throughout the city that there are sub-neighborhoods within the major neighborhood. Like, for instance, South of Market is probably the largest neighborhood in the city. It's got several sub-neighborhoods in it, like South Beach, for example. We'll focus more on that when we feature South of Market, but nevertheless, Dog Patch is, if you're looking at a map, say a Google map, it's within Potrero Hill. The main areas within the Dog Patch is, as far as the cross streets go, it's going to be 3rd Street, which I'm at right now, which is eastbound, and then it's going to go up to the highway, which we'll be featuring shortly, going westbound, Highway 280, and then northbound, the cross street is going to be 16th Street, and then southbound Cesar Chavez. So that's going to make up the Dog Patch neighborhood. That being the case, let's get started. And one of the things you want to be aware of if you decide to do any street parking in the city is to pay attention to the signage that's on the sidewalk before you decide to park. Now in this case, the first thing you want to emphasize is in green and white is 1 hour parking free parking between 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday. And then also underneath it shows move off the block or 1 0.2 mile before the limit expires, except area permits with EE. Now, in the case of the EE, that's where, let's say, a local has the permit, a paid permit, that allows them to park in this area, designated area. If you don't have that paid permit, then your options for parking free are limited pursuant to this signage. Now, the other thing is, in red and white, you'll see no parking between 12:01 a.m. to 6 a.m. on Tuesdays, and that's for street cleaning. So again, if your car is parked in this area during that time frame, you're going to get ticketed or towed. So the third thing, if you look at the very top, white and red, is no parking for vehicles over 22 feet long or 7 feet high. Again, every day from 12:01 to 6 a.m. So make sure you pay attention to these parking signs to prevent being ticketed or towed. Now, another thing you need to be aware of when parking within the city, especially on hills, is to how to properly turn your wheels to, of course, prevent the car from rolling, but also to keep from getting fined, because if your car is improperly fined, then you're going to get ticketed. Now, as you see here, the hill is going upwards. That means you need to turn your wheels pretty much away from the curb, as this car illustrates. If you're parking downhill, then your wheels need to be turned inward. I'll show you the downwheel motion in a minute. So on the opposite side of the street, the hill was going downward. So therefore, the first car here to your right, you see how it's properly turned. The wheels are turned inward against the curb, but the car in front of it is turned outward, which is improper. In which case, if the MTA ticket meter reps come by and see that car is the wheels are not properly turned inward, then they're going to get towed. They're going to get fined. Not so much towed, but you'll get fined. So again, make certain that your car is properly parked and the wheels are properly turned when parking uphill or downhill to keep from getting fined. Okay, now we're going to be approaching the 700 block of 19th Street. The cross street is Tennessee. And as I mentioned earlier, we are in the historic Dogpatch neighborhood within Potrero Hill. Now approaching the 800 block of 19th Street, the cross street is Minnesota. So right here at the corner of Minnesota and 19th Street is a Spirit Park. And this one, you'll find one of many parks throughout the city area where it's a relaxing area where you bring your pet or dog and you can relax, have lunch, network with your family and friends, colleagues. And some parks have more amenities than others. I'll show you what's at this park as well. But also keep in mind that the park has certain rules, like the hours are from 5 a.m. to midnight, camping is prohibitive, smoking is prohibitive, climbing and fixing items to trees is prohibitive, dogs must be on leash, except in designated dog play areas, and a few other things you need to be aware of. Now here's a fitness cluster within the park. I'll show you what the amenities look like. But nevertheless, some parks have these little amenities that enhance your experience for hiking, or walking and whatnot, and I'll show you what this fitness cluster is. So you can see there are a bunch of handrails here that you can use to stretch your arms, maybe chest. It's kind of like a cardiovascular exercise. It's kind of nice. So here's some stretching exercises you can do with the handrails as well that you might want to take into account before you decide to use them. Another close-up shot of the handrails. So here is a nice view of the park. I'll take some individual shots so you can see what it looks like. Primarily, it's not really a dog park, but it is a popular place for you to bring your pet. More shots of the park. Now, here's a nice waste disposal areas. One thing that you can use, that the city used to keep the city clean. So if you have waste disposal, don't hesitate to put it in the waste disposal can. It's located right outside the park, right at 19th and Minnesota. So here's one of several self-bike rental stations where you could literally rent. You can see, find out many of these are located throughout the city, so you can literally rent a bike here at the park, Potrero Hill, and then cycle to one end of Potrero Hill and drop it off at another bike station or drop it off downtown. So you see a lot of these bike rental stations all throughout the city, which is kind of nice. Located just right at the corner of 19th and Minnesota. And here's the pay station for the bike rental. So here's a sign that helps you identify your specific location. You'll see a few of these throughout the city. In the middle of the sign, it'll say, "You are here." As indicated before, it's right outside the Spirit Park. Again, right at the corner of Minnesota and 19th Street. Now approaching the 900 block of 19th Street. The cross street is Indiana. Well, O&M Luxury Apartments offers virtual tours. So those of you who are thinking of relocating to the city or specifically Dogpatch neighborhood, you can contact them directly. I believe tours are by appointment. Now they're located at 680 Indiana Street, right here on the corner of 19th Street. Now, one of the things that's going to help you identify the title of a street when you can't seem to find it is to look at the corner of the sidewalk. Now, What may happen in many cases when you come up to a street corner is that most of the signs that identify the street are at the poles at the corner of a block. But in some blocks and on some streets, there's no sign. And so what you do is, in that situation, you just come down to the corner of the street and you look at the sidewalk. And this is where you identify the title of the street. In this case, it's Indiana Street. Now here is one of many sculptures that you'll find throughout the city. Some are large, very large, and more famous, and then some are like this one that is quite unique. Now again, it's located right next to the luxury apartments I mentioned at 680 Indiana Street. I'll give you a few more shots of the sculpture. Here's another angle of the sculpture. It looks like it's a female riding a horse, but you might interpret it a little differently. Now, as you can see, we've come to a dead end on 19th Street going westbound. Now, the reason why I bring this up is that you'll find this to be the case all throughout the city, where some streets that you're walking or driving on, you simply can't get through to the next block. And so in that situation, you'll have to either turn left or right, going north or southbound, to get back to, in this case, 19th Street that we're going on. And I'll show you in a minute. We can either go northbound up to 18th Street, turn left, go westbound on 18th Street, and then turn left again on 18th Street back to 19th. Or we can turn right on 19th Street up to 18th Street, and then turn left on 18th Street. It's kind of like a loop. You simply loop around the dead end street. Or you turn left on Indiana Street to 20th Street, and then make a right on 20th Street, go over the highway, and then turn right again on the next block back over to 19th Street. So essentially, as I said before, you either have to turn left or turn right and walk or drive around the dead end street to get back to your main street. And so I'll show you that in a minute. In our case, I'm going to turn left on Indiana up to 20th Street and then go over the highway and then get back over to 19th Street. I'll show you in a minute. So now we're going southbound on Indiana Street. And again, our objective is to get back over to 19th Street. Well, as you can see, it's going to be a bit more of a challenge to try to get back over to 19th Street, because there's no way to cross the highway that's blocking our ability to gain back to 19th Street, other than if you're driving, you'd have to continue on down Indiana to 22nd Street, then make a left on 22nd to Minnesota, then left on Minnesota to 20th, and then 20th takes you over the highway over to Pennsylvania. Then you make a right on Pennsylvania back to 19th Street, and then continue going westbound. Now, since we're hiking or walking this film shoot, or if you're cycling, I'm going to show you a quick shortcut you can use to get to the highway, get to the bridge. That's what it is. That takes you over the highway 280. Now here's 20th Street. That's going to take us, but you're going to use a bridge, I'm going to show you in a minute, that'll take you over the Highway 280 back over to 19th Street. But it's a one-way street going westbound. So again, you won't be able to turn left on this street on 20th and go over the bridge, the 20th Street Bridge. But if you're cycling or hiking or walking as I am, you can go down 20th Street and then connect back to the 20th Street Bridge and then go over the bridge, over Highway 280, back over to Pennsylvania Street, as I said, and then you just make a right on Pennsylvania to 19th Street. I'll show you in a minute. So here's, how you doing? Here's 20th Street, and this is where you'll find the 20th Street Bridge. It's going to take us over the Highway 280, and as I mentioned earlier, the 20th Street Bridge. Now to your left, you'll see the sidewalk if you're walking, hiking, or cycling. Now I mentioned the 20th Street Bridge when we, in our phase 1 of Potrero Hill, going westbound on 20th Street. But as I said earlier, in this case, we're going eastbound on 19th Street. One of the things that's special about walking or cycling or riding over the 20th Street Bridge is the views of the San Francisco skyline, which I mentioned in phase 1, which are really spectacular. We're going to see more of this as we're moving westbound on 19th Street. So as we travel over the 280 highway on 20th Street, one of the things I mentioned in phase 1 is the use of Highway 280 when you're coming in and out of the city, going to and from, let's say, the San Francisco airport, as opposed to using Highway 101. There's far less traffic, especially during the rush hour time, but which is between 3:30 p.m. and 7 p.m. Monday through Friday. There's far less rush hour traffic time and rush hour traffic as a whole on 280 than there is on Highway 101. So the GPS might have you take 101 coming from the city going out to the airport, when in actuality you want to be using Highway 280 coming from the city going to the airport. This view on this side of the bridge is showing you going southbound. So if you were to your right, the cars are going southbound out of the city. To your left, the cars are coming inbound into the city. So this is the highway you want to be using when going to and from the San Francisco airport, to and from the city. Okay, now that we've crossed the 20th Street Bridge, now we're at the corner of Pennsylvania and 20th, so we're going to turn right on Pennsylvania back to 19th Street. Okay, now we're back on 19th Street. We're going to be on the 1100 block going westbound on 19th. As I mentioned earlier, the cross street will be Pennsylvania. Now, one of the things that's special about walking or cycling or jogging throughout the city, especially within the hilly neighborhoods like Potrero Hill, or at the intersections, the views of the bay when you reach the intersections of virtually every block are spectacular. So whenever you reach an intersection, like I'm going to show you as we travel westbound on 19th Street, you want to either look to your left, look to your right, or look north, south, east, and west. And you're going to see spectacular views of, in this case, looking eastbound from which you came, the view of the bay, which includes the container ships in the bay. You've also got, to your left, the Port of Oakland in the background, and the Oakland Hills. And then I'm going to show you as we look northbound in a minute what you'll see. So as you look to northbound at the intersection of 19th and Pennsylvania, you'll get that wonderful view of the San Francisco skyline. That tall building in front of us is, to the right is Salesforce Tower, and then to your left, that brown building is the Bank of America. And if you see in the middle between the Bank of America and the Salesforce Tower, that thin pyramid, that's the pyramid block. And of course, Highway 280 from which we crossed, the 20th Street Bridge. And then let me show you what you can see looking southbound. So as you look southbound, you're going to see the hillside homes, or homes of the hillside of the homes that are within south of the city as you approach San Mateo County, which is also spectacular. You get a better view of South San Francisco as we go up the hill westbound on 19th Street. But nevertheless, it's going to vary. Your views are going to vary from intersection to intersection. So let's continue our journey going westbound on 19th Street. Yeah, one of the things that is special about walking throughout the city during the Halloween season is you see all the nice Halloween decorations that a lot of locals are making. Here shows the skeleton dressed up in conjunction to their basketball court. I think they got one more on the other side. Let's take a look. Yes, they got another skeleton that's hanging out right in front of the porch area. And here's a few more on the sidewalk. Very creative. And finally, one hanging on the tree. Right now, they'll probably win the vote for the most decorative Halloween house within Potrero Hill so far. Now approaching the 1200 block of 19th Street. Cross Street is Mississippi. So you see another wonderful view of the San Francisco skyline at the intersection of Mississippi and 19th Street. Now approaching the 1300 block of 19th Street. Cross Street is Texas. So as you can see, as you cross each intersection, the views of the skyline get more refined and they're more easier to see. So they get better and better as you travel from east to west or west to east throughout Potrero Hill. So as we continue to go westbound on 19th Street, as you can see now, it's going to be a slight downhill as we approach our final destination, which is near 20th and Vermont, the longest, quickest street in the city. But nevertheless, it's going to vary as you travel throughout the various neighborhoods, where the hills are going to vary. You're either going to be going uphill or you're going to be going downhill. In this particular moment, we're going to be going downhill. Now, approaching the 1400 block of 19th Street. The cross street is Missouri, and if you notice, you'll see a name, Peter Summon Way, in conjunction to 19th Street. Sometimes you'll find that certain streets or even highways are named after famous people. So you want to consider that when trying to find a specific location. Also, I want to show you something else about the significance of parking in the city, especially in the residential neighborhoods like Potrero Hill. Now, on some streets, like on Missouri Street, you'll have to park at 90-degree angle. And so you want to pay attention to that when you're in various neighborhoods like Potrero Hill. And I'll show you the signage in a minute. But this is the way you need to park. You see the cars on the right-hand side of Missouri Street? Notice the position and how they're parked. You must park at this angle, at 90 degrees, on this particular block, and like many blocks throughout the city. So, as you can see, as the sign indicates, park at 90 degrees. So again, as I was saying earlier, make sure you pay attention to the signage if you decide to street park within the city to risk getting ticketed or towed. Well, at the corner of 19th Street in Connecticut is the St. Teresa of Avila Catholic Church. Now they've got Mass schedule hours of Saturday Vigil 4:15 p.m. and then regular Mass on Sundays from 8:30 a.m. and 10 a.m. and Tuesday and Friday at 8:30 a.m. Now approaching the 1500 block of 19th Street. The cross street is Connecticut. Yet another spectacular view of the San Francisco skyline at the intersection of 19th Street and Connecticut. They never stop getting better. Now, one of the things you'll have to abide by when driving throughout the city are street closures. And these occur for a lot of different reasons. Accidents, construction, whatever it might be, you may run into these street closure signs. So you'd want to pay attention to this, and ideally, if you can find out in advance if a street is going to be closed prior to arrival. That's going to save you a lot of time and driving around in circles before you find your targeted address. But nevertheless, you need to adhere to these road closure signs, which can happen at any given time. Now approaching the 1600 block of 19th Street. The cross street is Arkansas. Now, before we continue going westbound on 19th Street, I want to show you something else you need to be aware of. If you're driving a large vehicle through the neighborhoods that have steep hills like Potrero Hill, so you see you have two signs here that advise you of driving on Arkansas Street on this very steep hill of Arkansas. I'll show you in a minute. And one says sharp crest ahead, and then trucks not advised. Now you need to be very aware of the steepness of these hills when driving a large vehicle, because in some cases you might not be able to make it going up the hill. Maybe going down the hill, but not up the hill. That had to happen to me once when I was a driver, commercial driver for a day, driving some children back home, and I had to go down up a very steep hill, and I almost didn't think I was going to make it because the vehicle had a very difficult time driving up the steep hill. I thought I was going to turn around and go backwards for a minute, but I didn't know. I was not aware of all these steep hills throughout the city. So let me show you how steep Arkansas Hill is coming off of 19th Street. So as you can see, Arkansas Street is very steep, and you'd have a very difficult time driving up this hill with a large vehicle. But coming down, of course, is a different thing. As long as you have great brakes, as you can see, there's a UPS truck that's parked on the left-hand side of the street, but it managed to find a few other streets in the navigation that allowed it to come down the hill of Arkansas Street as opposed to going up the hill Arkansas Street. So again, this is something you want to be aware of when you're driving to a destination point with a large vehicle, is you need to know, and you need to know how to navigate your way around driving up steep hills in the city. So now as I'm continuing going westbound on 19th Street, off of Arkansas, the street is going downwards. And this view is spectacular because I'm not at the intersection right now, but you see how you get a clear, pretty much unobstructed view of the skyline, which is really extraordinary. And it's kind of like to the left of the main downtown area. So if you just look to your right here, I'm going to show you, you'll be able to see more of the downtown area to the right. Let me give you some individual shots versus a panoramic shot. So here's a great individual shot of the city skyline, which is really extraordinary. And then if you just look to your right, you'll see a little bit more of the skyline, though the tree and the buildings are obstructing it, the view. So yeah, as soon as I get down to the bottom of the hill at 19th and Wisconsin, now you can see a more clear view of the downtown San Francisco skyline, which is really extraordinary. Now approaching the 1700 block of 19th Street. The cross street is Wisconsin. So again, another example of how steep the hills can be here in the city, and how it's better if you're coming down the hill like this car is versus going up the hill when you have a large vehicle. And notice how, again, the cars are parked at 90-degree angle as well. Now here's yet another sign that you need to be aware of when parking throughout the city, is when it says no stopping, and notice the date between October 22nd, 2020 and October 23rd, 2020, between 12 a.m. midnight to 5 p.m., essentially Thursday and Friday. And then look at the address, 655 Haro Street at 19th Street. Haro's coming up here in a few minutes. No parking in this area during this time frame. Now, if you park in this area during this time frame, you ignore the sign, then you run the risk of getting towed. So this is why I say is to always pay attention to signage whenever you decide to do any street parking within the city. Now we're crossing the 1800 block of 19th Street. The cross street is Carolina. Okay, now we're approaching the 1900 block of 19th Street. The cross street is Haro. Now, I got to show you something really special about this intersection, about what you can see. One moment. Now at the intersection of 19th Street and Haro, check out the spectacular, unobstructed views of the city skyline. It's really extraordinary. I'm going to give you several individual shots so you can see how wonderful it is at this particular intersection, because it's not obstructed by trees or buildings or houses like many of the other intersections as we're coming down 19th Street. So let me give you some more great shots. Now here's yet another shot of the wonderful shot of the Bay Bridge and East Bay Hill in the background. The Bay Bridge is what you're going to be using when you're, let's say, coming from the Oakland airport, driving a rental car into the city, or vice versa, coming out of the city, going over to the Oakland airport. You're going to be using the Bay Bridge. So, as you can see, another spectacular view of the Bay Bridge. And let me show you one more great shot that you'll see here at the corner of Haro and 19th Street. So this third shot at the corner of Haro and 19th Street, it shows you where we literally came from. We came from the east and we're coming west. And you'll notice that you'll see wonderful views of the homes that are on the hills. So you see what they essentially living on in these homes on the hills, they're going to be able to wake up to spectacular views of the skyline. But now you see how they look on the hill, as well as the steepness of the 19th Street from which we came. So once again, we've come to another dead end, and as I indicated, when we got to Indiana Street and at 19th Street, we had to do a kind of like a U-turn, so to speak, and go around the dead end street to get back to 19th Street. So the same procedure will occur again at this dead end street. We'll have to either go south onto Haro up to 22nd Street, loop around to get back to 19th Street, or we're going to have to go north onto Haro up to 18th Street and then make a couple of left turns to get back over to 19th Street. So as I since indicated before, you're going to run into a lot of dead-end streets where your targeted street you won't be able to drive all the way through to get to your destination on your targeted street, because you're going to be coming to these dead-end streets, and then you're going to have to make a decision to loop around the dead end, either going north or going southbound, making a few left turns, making a few right turns. So in our case, let's go southbound onto Harold Street. On second thought, let's go northbound onto Harold Street. Well, we have a waste disposal area here and also a mail drop box, USPS mail drop. So as far as the waste disposal goes, as I mentioned earlier, it's a great place to keep the city clean by disposing all of your waste whenever you see a waste disposal garbage can. And also for if you need to drop off any souvenirs or any special mail deliveries, here's a nice convenient USPS post office box drop located at 655 DeHarrell Street. Okay, so now we reach the corner of 18th Street and DeHarrell. So we're gonna turn left going westbound on 18th Street as we eventually make our way back to 19th Street. Now, We're going to make another left turn, this time on Rhode Island Street off of 18th Street. And we're going to go westbound on Rhode Island back to 19th Street. Now, one of the things you need to be aware of if you plan on using public transit throughout the city is where the bus stops are located. Now, some areas throughout the city, there'll be a true designated bus stop. That is, they'll have some seats, they'll have a kind of like a oven, covered seating area where the bench is actually covered, as well as signage indicating where all the bus stops are going to be stopping at this stop. You find a lot of those on Market Street. It's a true designated bus stop. In other cases, you won't have that. You'll just have a yellow marked marking that indicates the specific bus line that's going to stop here. In this case, the bus 19 is going to stop here, and this yellow marking is going to be on any of the designated poles, street poles during the city. So this is what you're going to look for when you're trying to find your specific bus stop. It's going to be clear cut with seats and a covered area over the seat, roof over the seat I should say, or it's going to be like this where it's going to be a yellow marking on any one of the poles at one of the street corners, and always going to be at the street corner, never in the middle of the street. So this makes it easy for you to find your bus stop for your specific bus line. So now we're back on 19th Street, the 2000 block going westbound. The cross street is Rhode Island. But let me show you another hidden gem throughout the city that you'll find when you come upon a dead-end street, like we've done so far twice already in walking westbound on 19th Street. So, as you can see, right here at the corner of of Rhode Island and 19th Street is a stepwell. Now, the stepwells throughout the city are designed to literally take you from one block to another, especially when there's a dead-end street. And I missed it, ironically, when we got to Haro and 19th Street, I didn't see the stepwell, which would have taken us up to right here at Rhode Island and 19th Street. But nevertheless, this is a great tool. The stepwells are a great tool to use when you need to get from one block to another or from one street to another. Of course, provided that you are walking or hiking versus if you're driving. But nevertheless, let me take you down the stepwell, and I'm going to show you how it connects from Haro, from which we recently came from. Now, be advised that if you're walking throughout the stepwells that are not paved, most of the stepwells in the city are paved, solid concrete sidewalks, but in this particular case, it's kind of like a dirt stairwell. In which case, if you don't have hiking shoes on, you can slip and fall. So, you want to walk very carefully, especially downhill, on these stepwells that are dirt paved, versus on a paved stepwell, the cement, that are easy to walk on. So you can see we're right back at Haro and 19th Street as a result of walking down the hidden stepwell. It's funny that I didn't see the stepwell when we're right here at the corner because it's kind of hidden amongst the trees. I'll show you in a minute. So you can see this step well is very well hidden amongst the trees here at the local resident. So you really have to pay attention to find this particular step well. So that's what you want to do when you come to a dead end. Look to your left and look to your right to find a specific stairwell if one exists, and then use that step well to get to the next block, or to continue your journey on a specific block, as we're doing right now on 19th Street. Again, another one of the many hidden gems throughout the city and within Potrero Hill. So now let's head back up the step well as we continue our journey on 19th Street going westbound. Continuing our journey up the step well going westbound. Almost to the top. So now we're back at the corner of Rhode Island and 19th Street, and we're going to continue our journey on 19th Street going westbound. Now we're approaching the 2100 block of 19th Street. Cross street is Kansas. Now at the intersection of Kansas and 19th Street, you're going to see, look to your westbound, as we're heading westbound, you're going to see amazing views of the city housing skyline along with Sutro Tower. And Sutro Tower is a tower that's used to broadcast the local TV stations, or I should say the local TV stations use that tower to broadcast their signal. And so I featured Sutro Tower in my film shoot of Twin Peaks. I'll leave a link in the description below, because you get a up close look at the Sutro Tower, as well as how the city skyline as well, which is really extraordinary, from Sutro Tower and Twin Peaks. Nevertheless, another spectacular view of the city at another intersection. Let me show you a few more views. For the first time, I think we'll be able to see the Golden Gate Bridge. Let me see if we can get a good shot of it. Well, unfortunately, oh yes, if you can see just the head of the bridge, the Golden Gate Bridge, unfortunately, a lot of times you'll find throughout most of the year that the bridge is covered with fog off the ocean. But this time of the year, it was called the Indian summer, is the warmest time of the year in the city, and usually there's a clear, unobstructed view of the Golden Gate Bridge for the most part, but occasionally the fog will come back in, and because the fog is in today, you won't be able to see most of the Golden Gate Bridge. But yeah, I can see some of it at a distance, at least the head portion of it, even though some of it is covered with fog. The views are better of the Golden Gate Bridge when you're at a higher peak within the hills of the city, provided that there's no unobstructed view of the buildings or of trees. So now we're approaching the 2200 block of 19th Street. The cross street is Vermont. And as I mentioned previously, Potrero Hill, the #1 hidden gem in the city, in Potrero Hill, as well as the top hidden gem in the city, is the 20th and Vermont Crooked Street. It is the longest crooked street in the city. The longest crooked street in the city is not Lombard Street. It's at 20th and Vermont, It's one block up from where we're at 19th in Vermont. And I'll put a link in the description as I showcased the 20th and Vermont Crooked Street in phase one of Potrero Hill. Meanwhile, let's continue our journey going westbound on 19th Street. So here's yet another waste disposal as well as a mail drop box at your convenience. The city wants to do everything it can to keep the city clean, so whenever there's an opportunity for you to dispose of waste, please feel free to dispose it in a garbage can at the corner of 19th and Vermont, to be exact 701 Vermont Street. Now, those of you that are interested in purchasing real estate or home here in Potrero Hill, check out Soft Bays International Realty. Josh Burns is your main contact. Area code 415-307-2463. Now we're approaching the 2300 block of 19th Street. The cross street is San Bruno. Now what makes San Bruno special is you just go up another block up to actually 20th Street, and there's a garden up there. So those who are into gardening, you got to check out that garden because it offers spectacular views of the city skyline, but more so of the city hills that I showed you previously, and also Sutro Tower. And I featured the garden in my phase one film shoot at Potrero Hill. So again, check out the link in the description below about how that garden looks and the views that you can obtain by visiting the garden. Now 19th Street is going to come to an end, another dead end. However, you can, like we've shown previously, you can kind of loop around the dead end to continue 19th Street going westbound, but this is the end of Potrero Hill on 19th Street. But before we conclude the video, I want to show you what the view is going to look like at the end of the dead end street here on 19th Street. So, as you can see at the end of 19th Street in Potrero Hill, you're going to witness spectacular views of the hillside home skyline as well as Sutro Tower. You'll get a little bit better view of the Golden Gate Bridge. Try to see if I can shoot that for you as well, even though it's still covered a little bit with fog. And it's really amazing. It's a great way to conclude your journey going westbound from 3rd Street, where we began, all the way up to pretty much the end, the dead end of 19th Street in Potrero Hill. Now, once you cross highway, we hear the cars in the background, that's Highway 101. Once you cross Highway 101, now you're going to be in the Mission District. And then 19th Street continues going westbound in the Mission District, but we'll feature the Mission District at another film shoot. Meanwhile, we're going to conclude our film shoot here in a minute. So here's another wonderful shot of what you can see from the dead-end street. Now this one, I'm showcasing the Golden Gate Bridge in the background. It's at a considerable distance. But if you see that red bridge or red arch in the background there, you might be able to see it. But it is at a considerable distance from this dead-end street. But nevertheless, another spectacular, almost panoramic view that you would find when you come to the dead end of 19th Street. And let me show you one more shot as you look more towards the south of the city within the dead end street. So this is what you see is when you're looking southbound from the dead end street, and then you're going to see more of the spectacular views of the hillside homes. Unfortunately, it is somewhat obstructed by the trees here, but when you go up to the garden, as I mentioned earlier, at San Bruno and 19th Street, no, San Bruno and 20th Street, I'm sorry, right next to the Crooked Street, you'll be able to see unobstructed views of the hillside homes, which is really extraordinary. So this is considered, let's say, south of the city, and then as I showed you earlier, the Sutro Tower is going to be westbound, and then towards the Golden Gate Bridge is northbound. Okay, so this concludes our Phase 2 film shoot at Potrero Hill. I hope you enjoyed the incredible scenic views of the San Francisco skyline, the homes on the hills of some of the hillside skyline. I hope you enjoy the information on how to park within the neighborhood, how to park on the hills, how to navigate your way around the hills if you're driving or using a large vehicle. I hope you enjoy the information on street parking and the significance of the numbered block and how to identify your location point throughout the city. And finally, I hope you enjoyed just being able to see how wonderful Potrero Hill really is. Just one block, literally coming from east to west on 19th Street, and how you can navigate your way throughout these specific streets, especially when the street comes to a dead end. I hope you enjoy the significance of how to get around that dead end so that you can continue your journey on your targeted street, which, as I mentioned earlier, occurs throughout the city. That being the case, I hope if you liked everything and learned everything that you saw and heard, appreciate if you would subscribe to my channel, like, share, comment with your family and friends. Don't forget to log into my website at panoramic, PAIRREC.com. And that's in view my blog, where you can learn more about the details of all the points of interest within the film shoot. And also, while you're at the website, don't forget to subscribe to my newsletter, where you can learn more about discounts and promotions on rental cars, lodging, dining, shopping, wine tasting, and more. And don't forget to view my film shoots on the other spectacular points of interest throughout the Bay Area, as well as within the city. Within the city, I shot the Financial District, Phase 1 of Potrero Hill, Market Street, and then also outside the city, Napa, Wine Country, Sonoma, the Highway 1 Drive from San Francisco all the way down to Monterey, and also Marin County, where I shot the San Rafael Bridge. I emphasized North San Pedro Road, another hidden gem in Marin County. I shot the Sausalito to Tiburon, which is really spectacular. You got to check that out. I'll put all links in the description so you can check them out as well. And finally, don't forget to tune in to Phase 3 as we continue our journey in Potrero Hill. We'll be going eastbound on 18th Street, all the way back out to 3rd Street. Well, that's all for now, and have a nice day. Oh, and finally, I forgot to mention one little thing. There's a new feature I need to have you should take advantage of that was issued by YouTube, where it's called chapters. And that's where, as I mentioned earlier in the film shoot, you could find a specific point of interest within the video clip by looking at the timestamps that are illustrated within the description. So in that description, I'll be identifying some of the key points that I shot throughout the film shoot. You click on any one of those timestamps and it'll take you right to that specific film clip. Now, that being the case, have a nice day. I'll see you in the next film shoot.